Hello and welcome to the Building an Indie Business Podcast with SupremeRumHam. I'm your host, Alex. Today, I will be discussing my launch of Alerts for BTC, formerly alertsforcc.com. I launched it on Product Hunt, and I wanted to discuss the things I learned, why I launched it on Product Hunt, and how it went. But first, I wanted to discuss some general podcast things. There is the Patreon page and the Buy Me a Coffee page, which are for improving the podcast. So if you get value out of this podcast, then you can donate some money, and I will put that money directly back into the podcast. So if I need new equipment or new software, then the money that I get from Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee will be the money that I use to pay for that stuff. Okay, so let's get into it. Why I decided to launch Alerts for BTC on Product Hunt. 3 reasons. I wanted to launch because I have been making the site more accessible, and I added a button for the instructions. Before that, what would happen is you would hover over the elements, and that's how you would get the instructions. So I think you would hover over the input box for the first instruction. Then the next instruction would tell you to click the button, and when you click the button, you would get the second instruction. And then the third button, I don't even remember how, or the third instruction, I don't even remember how that happened, but it was all based on hover. And I was reading my accessibility book, Accessibility for Everyone, which I will do an episode on that book soon. And it said that hovering is not accessible, so less people can use your site. And so I decided to make it a button instead, and I wanted to test out how that would go with users, and so I decided to launch on Product Hunt. The second reason I wanted to launch on Product Hunt was because I wanted to launch the podcast on Product Hunt without launching the podcast. So what I did was, I already had a native ad for the podcast on the site, but I took my podcast page from my personal site, and I changed the style to fit the Alerts for BTC style, and I added a podcast section or page to the header of Alerts for BTC. And the third and final reason why I wanted to launch the website on Product Hunt was I wanted to practice launching something for the future when I launch the podcast on Product Hunt. Alright, so the things I learned now. So I learned that the best day to launch is Sunday, and this is because you need less upvotes than other days to get to the top. So for Sunday, if you wanted to get to the top, which I didn't, but just in case, you needed 26 upvotes on Sunday, and on Monday it was 27. So a little bit of a difference, but also when you're at the top, it doesn't matter so much as how many votes you have, but how many, or the influence of the people voting for your product. I'm pretty sure if Ryan Hoover voted or upvoted Alerts for BTC, then it would have been at the top. Because I was looking at the other days, like Tuesday, Wednesday, and I saw one product that had 19 upvotes for the day, and it was at the top. So I'm assuming that some influential people in the product hunt community upvoted the product and elevated its status. Okay, so the next thing I learned was to launch at 12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And this is to give you the most amount of time that you can have on the site and to gather upvotes. And also, I read that it's also so that people in the Bay Area, which I assume is their most, where most their users are, and so it gives people in the Bay Area a time to see your product. But my problem with this is that, first off, if everyone knows that you're supposed to launch at 12 a.m., then everyone's going to launch at 12 a.m. and it's going to get buried by all the 12 a.m. posts. I posted at 12:15 a.m. And also, not everyone is up at 12 a.m. in the Bay Area. So to get your posts seen more, I think maybe posting it at 7 in the morning when people are waking up, and like if Product Hunt is the first thing that they check, then they'll see the first post from 7 a.m. Alright, that's just my thought. I don't know, whatever. The next thing I learned was use emojis, and that's to like make it more fun and more like visible when comparing it to just text. The next thing I learned is use your network to elevate your post. So post it on Twitter, post it on forums, send it to your email list. And the final thing I learned was do not ask for upvotes. What you do is you're supposed to tell people that you're on Product Hunt and then link them to the post. And if you do ask for upvotes specifically and someone from Product Hunt sees you asking, then what will happen is they will change the algorithm to make it so like you can't get to the top. Okay, so how it went. I got 2 upvotes that day and 2 upvotes the day after. So yeah, I didn't make it to the top. My goal wasn't to make it to the top. It was just to like get the experience of launching something without having to risk like something. And I felt that launching the website was that. I know that you can only launch every 6 months. So I wanted to not mess up the opportunity to launch the podcast on Product Hunt and have to be forced to wait another 6 months to launch it. So I just launched alerts for BTC because there was hardly any risk. Actually, there was no risk at all. Okay, so the reason I only got 2 upvotes was because I only promoted the launch on Maker's Kitchen in Slack and on Twitter. I didn't utilize any other Telegram group that I'm in just because I was just practicing. I didn't want to like waste any goodwill I had with people. I want to save that for launching the podcast. Also, I read that you're supposed to use GIFs, and the graphic that I have right now, or the logo, I guess, I have for alerts for BTC, that takes me about 10 minutes to make, and it's a lot of effort. It was a 10-minute video that I used to make it the first time, and so I didn't want to use a different color and like change the background like twice. And so I just stuck with the the original blue logo. And I've also I checked the top launches of like this past week, and I saw that some of them used a GIF, but others didn't. And while we're on the subject, it's GIF, not GIF, because it's graphical interchange format, not graphical interchange format. Okay. The next thing I did successfully, or how it went, was that I used an emoji tagline. And yeah, so what my emoji tagline was like, get, and then an alert, and the alert was like the bell emoji for when the price of Bitcoin, and then it was the chart logo and the chart going up. Okay. So the reason why I launched, people using the site. So after I have a heat map on alerts for BTC. I have a heat map on all my websites actually. I use fullstory.com. That's neither here nor there, but okay. So only 2 people use this site, and they didn't click the new button. So yeah, that sucks. And also, I have this thing where if you type in a specific number and you click the save price button, then like something pops up saying like saved, and then it'll have like a little quip. So for like 5,000, I think it's, you can buy a really nice watch with that. Or for 50,000, I think it's like, are you trying to buy a house? Stuff like that. So every time someone goes on the site, what I want them to do is I want them to play with that and like try to find every option. But yeah, it never happens. So I took all that time to think up how to like make my site more personable or whatever, and it didn't work. But that's okay. Alright, so that's it. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, any episode ideas, you could tweet me at SupremeRumHam. You can email me, srhpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day. Are you still listening? Okay. So, I am going to start using the, like, maybe 1 or 2 minutes of after I finish the main part of the podcast to, I don't know, make jokes or talk about something that I think in a more funny way, because I've always tried to make this podcast funny. My goal is to be like the Bill Burr of the indie maker scene. Not joking at all. I love Bill Burr, and I would love to be compared to him in any joke making capacity. And so I'm going to start maybe talking about some funny things at the end of the podcast, and you don't have to listen to it. It'll be at the end. Because I want to like help people learn, and I don't really know how to make it funny. I want to give people value, and I really don't know how to make it funny. So I'm going to just start talking about random things and hope something comes out that's funny. So for this end of the podcast, I'm going to tell a joke. Alright, so a man walks into a dentist's office. The man says to the dentist, "I think I'm a moth." And then the dentist says, "If you think you're a moth, then why are you at the dentist's office?" And he says, "Because the light was on." Okay. That's it for this episode. Have a nice day. Thanks for listening. And if you actually heard that joke and you liked it, even if you didn't like it, tweet me at SupremeRumHam. I would love to hear that someone actually heard that joke. All right, have a nice day. Bye.